of 43,700. That is 67% higher. Thank you, sir.
Carol Beaumont.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. Well, I want to follow my colleague Darian Fenton and talk about what's happening to women in the paid workforce. Certainly, women are going backwards under this national government. Women are not experiencing the brighter future that National promised. Their rich corporate mates, on the other hand, of course, are getting lots of attention and lots of opportunities, but not women seeking to get ahead financially. Not women trying to manage paid and unpaid work responsibilities. As others have noted, the job situation is dire, unemployment remains high, and yet National promised 170,000 new jobs over 4 years in 2011, and in 2012 managed to just muster 8,000. And of course, over recent days, we've seen workers losing their jobs from a Whaumangere in Shannon. New Zealand Post workers hearing today that they will be losing their jobs. The mill workers in Rotorua hearing on Monday that they would be losing their jobs. Many, many workers. And I want to convey my concern to those workers and know just how difficult that will be. Sir, it's not only unemployment that's a problem, though. Underemployment also remains a problem. Over 100,000 people would want more work, and I'm sure that the majority of those workers would be women seeking more hours than they currently have. And women are low paid. Women are overrepresented amongst those in low paid work, certainly at least 60% of those on the minimum wage. And of course, the government fails to make any meaningful shift in the minimum wage, fails to commit to a living wage. And who does that affect? Who does that affect? Well, of course it affects those women workers, but it also affects their families. It has an impact on their lifetime earnings. It means with an ageing population where women tend to live longer, that women are more likely to be living in poverty in their old age. And what's the government's response to low pay? Well, John Key thinks it's a great idea, actually. He's quoted as saying driving wages down is a good thing. And the Employment Relations Act changes. The attacks on workers' rights will make the situation worse by undermining collective bargaining. And certainly the CEDAW, the International UN Committee concerned about women, has said you need to look at the gendered impact of this legislation. What's the government said? No action to be taken. What about pay equity? This is not something that government is committed to. Government says that greater economic independence for women is meant to be a priority. But they say that will be done by moving women out of low-paid work rather than valuing and paying for that work. Well, who's going to do the work in aged care, for example? And when are we going to see that properly valued? There's barely any mention on the Ministry of Women's Affairs website to pay equity. Certainly the CEDAW committee again refers to that, and again, no action to be taken. Recently, a very brave woman, Christine Bartlett, won a case against her employer, Terra Nova, an aged care employer. She earns $14.46 after 20 years' service in aged care. Well, what's the government saying? Well, the Minister of Women's Affairs isn't interested, hasn't briefed the Minister of Labour, doesn't even have a conversation with the Minister of Labour about this important issue. The Minister of Labour, when questioned in the House, just makes jokes. So clearly, pay equity is not something government is concerned about. Paid parental leave, which would help families manage their income when they have a new child. Well, of course, my colleague here, Sue Moroney, is actively promoting an extension to 26 weeks. Massive community support, majority in this House. But no, the government intends to veto that change. But I want to talk particularly about industry training, because industry training is supposedly how women might move into these non-traditional jobs. And yet the numbers don't bear mentioning. The numbers of women in industry training are appalling. And recently, when I questioned the Minister on how this lines up with the Better Public Services goal, or the Canterbury Rebuild goal, or even the business growth agenda of delivering more skills, the numbers are going down, the number of women in industry training. And I just want to say some of the worst cases. The building and construction industry, 1% of trainees in that industry are women. Joinery, 6%. Electricity, 7%. Infrastructure, 6%. And what's the government doing about it? Well, according to the Acting Minister of Tertiary Education, Ministry of Women's Affairs are helping here. Well, they've done a pamphlet, they've done a research paper, and they interviewed 7 women in the electrical industry. A joke.
Jamie Lee Ross.
Mr Speaker, being lectured on job growth by Carol Beaumont and Darian Fenton is like being lectured by